Howdy everybody, I'm Dave with Nelson Creek Farm, welcoming you all back on this beautiful, sunny, gorgeous Memorial Day. We're going to talk a little bit about family and memorials today and memories that come back to haunt us every once in a while or are really quite pleasant. I don't talk about my own family very much, especially on this channel. Just as a matter of choice, sometimes things aren't needed to be out circulating around the world. However, in this case, I'm going to. Because today is a day that we remember everybody that has gone before us, whether they've been in the military or not, and how they've shaped our lives. So we're going to get started with my grandparents. If you've been with me for any time, you've often probably heard me mention my grandfather, Richard, who came to live here in this house many moons ago. His parents pulled the thing out of sagebrush and got the farm started here back in the day. Granddad used to drive a 1929 Model A Ford pickup from here every Sunday up to Pocatello. Yeah, today is a good hour and a half drive or so, but in a Model A Ford at 30 mile an hour or whatever on the old bumpy dirt gravel roads, it'd take a lot longer. He would take off heading to school in this big city of Pocatello at the time. They have the University of Idaho up there. I think it's which one it is. Anyway, he would go up there after he would have church with the folks and a Sunday chicken dinner. Yep, he'd drive in that little Model A pickup that he bought secondhand from a fellow that lost it during the Depression, with Granddad picking that up in the very early 30s. Anyway, he would drive that back and forth from the farm here on Sunday up to Pocatello and be there in time to rest up and whatnot and get a good night's sleep before his classes started again on Monday morning. His last class ended about noon on Thursdays, at which time he'd jump back in the Model A pickup and drive back down here to the farm, weather permitting, of course. Now, being born in 1912, he was too young to participate in the First Great War, and if World War II would have carried on any further because of his age by then, he would have been drafted towards the end of the war in World War II. Fortunately, he managed to miss out on all of that. Thankfully, because of that, he ended up meeting my grandmother, Marie Boyer, who had a brother. Now, my grandmother Marie was born in 1920, so she missed out on the first war altogether and managed to survive the second war and ended up marrying my granddad Richard. And they've had a couple of girls since then. My Aunt Betty, whom you've seen in the video, and once or twice my mother, Barbara. Now, my grandmother had a brother, Albert, whom I'd mentioned, who can be seen in this Navy class graduation photo. I have this really cool, long, old photograph of some family history. This fellow right here is my great uncle Albert Boyer and his best friend Ted Jensen. Now, as fate would have it, Uncle Albert and his good buddy Ted Jensen both ended up serving on board a ship called the USS Boise, which just so happens to be the capital of the state of Idaho, from which Uncle Albert was from. Now, Ted was from Washington, and he returned to Washington to marry and settle down and have a family there after the war. Unfortunately, Uncle Albert never survived the war, so I'm remembering him today along with my grandmother and grandfather. So let me read you a little something that I found off of Wikipedia. On the night of 11/12, October 1942, during the Battle of Cape Esperance, The task force of which Boise was a part of encountered a force of Japanese cruisers and destroyers to the west of Guadalcanal. In the engagement, Boise was hit a number of times, twice by fire from a Japanese heavy cruiser from about 7,500 yards. One hit exploded upon impact on her armor, causing very little damage. The other was an armor-piercing shell, which penetrated under the waterline and exploded in the 6-inch gun magazine located between number 1 and number 2 turrets, causing a powder fire, flooding, and putting turrets 1, 2, and 3 out of action, and causing a number of casualties, including 107 killed. Well, my Uncle Albert was one of those 107, and he's buried at sea. Years ago, Mr. Jensen showed up here on the doorstep one day before my grandmother Marie passed away and presented me with a .22 rifle that Albert had on board the Boise with him. Now, how he managed to have a rifle on board a Navy ship, that's kind of anyone's guess. I still have the rifle. I won't show it to you today because of the rules and regulations from YouTube. But in the buttstock of it, it's kind of been curved or carved, almost like it has a pistol grip in it. And on the bottom of it, it has AB in it for Albert Boyer. Anyway, never met the man, but rest in peace, both of you. Yeah, Ted Jensen and Albert. Another person I'd like to take a moment to remember that served in the military was my stepfather, Bob Barker. Not Bob Barker from Price is Right. And in a way, I'm glad it wasn't, because the Bob Barker I knew, really a wonderful man. Now, my stepdad, Bob, he managed to survive 2 tours over in Vietnam. He received a couple of Purple Hearts for his actions, too. First round, he was just a field soldier, or grunt, as some people call him, walking the ground and hunting for the bad guys. He often told of a story about where his CEO of his group had to relieve himself. So the gentleman squatted down and didn't realize that he was on top of what they called a spider hole that had one of the Viet Cong in it. Well, as he's hunkered down doing his business, Viet Cong shoots him right square in the bum. Now, that sounds humorous, and don't know if it's true or not, but I'd like to think it was. We lost Bob a few years back to pancreatic cancer, and a lot of folks were thinking that might have been tied into some Agent Orange, because he often said he got sprayed with the stuff, so I don't know. And if we want to go back even further in the family tree, a lot of people have come and gone. Between my junior high school, which was 7th grade to 8th grade, and high school, 9th to 12th here in the local Kimberly School District, I lost what I consider to be probably 80% of my family that I grew up knowing as a kid. About every 2.5, 3 weeks, I was gone to a funeral. May have mentioned that before, so some of you may recall that. Anyway, I'm sure some of those folks probably served some way, in some form, somewhere, in some war. And if we want to go back even further, there was a Boyer on my grandmother's side that was a Confederate cavalryman. Yeah, we used to have the whole uniform for the fella. I forget what his first name was. But as a kid, I dressed up on Halloween on 2 different occasions, once in a full-fledged Confederate cavalry uniform, from the hat to the sword to the boots. And on another Halloween, I had my great Uncle Albert's spare Navy uniform, this blues, dressed up as a Navyman. Now, if I knew where those photos were, I'd share them with you right here, right now. Unfortunately, they're probably lost to time. I'm sorry this is bouncing around a little bit, but as I remember things, I'll impart them on to you. Back to more recent times, my cousin's father, J.R. I believe he served over in Nam. Not entirely sure what he did. Not sure what branch he was in, but if I remember correctly, he was in Nam as well. Who knows? Maybe he and Grandpa Bob bumped into each other somewhere along the lines. And then there is my Uncle Dale. Nice guy. Love him to pieces. And heaven bless him. He puts up with my aunt very well. Anyway, I know he was in the United States Navy, and I know he was on board an aircraft carrier. What his position was, I don't remember. I know he talked about being on the flight deck a time or two, but what he actually did, don't know for a fact, or don't remember. I'm sure I was told somewhere along the lines. But we're going to remember him and JR today, as well as everybody else. So from me to all those family members that I've mentioned, and all of you that have served or know someone in your lives that has, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving us the freedoms we enjoy today and maintaining those freedoms today. For all of you that are still serving. Yes, indeed. With that said, we're going to wrap up today's video. I do want to reiterate once again, thank you to all of you. And thank you to the new subscribers that we've gotten to the channel in the last couple of weeks. We've got quite a few of them. Had a lot of views about the hay baler titled No Sale. We're going to have a touch on that a little bit more because there's been a lot of interest in that in the upcoming videos, and we're going to get back to doing some farming work. Anyway, I thank you, and if you would, right down there, please hit that big red button that says subscribe on it. It means a lot to me. Anyway, y'all carry on. And to all those of you that are serving and whatnot, God bless. Stay safe and keep on. To quote a famous line from one of Bob Hope's old USO shows from World War II, Korea and Nam, thank you for the memories. Until next time, I'm Farmer Dave here at Nelson Craig Farms. We'll catch up with y'all later. Bye-bye for now.